Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Full Potential Show. I'm James Rick, and this is your number one non-boring source for personal development. And today on the line, we have Agatha Kulesza, money expert and speaker. Agatha immigrated from Poland when she was 3, built and rebuilt businesses 3 times over, worked as an accountant at Deloitte & Touche, a Big 4 accounting firm. One of her clients was a $5 billion hedge fund. She's got an online class called the 6-Week Money Mojo, online class for personal finance that won't bore you to death. Agatha is here to share for especially smart young people that were never taught how to manage their money. Such a shame that they're not, but that's why we're here. Agatha, thank you for being on today's Full Potential Show.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's dive in. First of all, your background is interesting. I mean, you came from Poland. You pretty much learned through the streets, as they say, in terms of building your businesses and, going through these trials and tribulations. And you learned a lot about money in that time.
I did. I wish I could say that I learned a lot about money in college because I majored in accounting, but I really didn't. I learned how to do, audits of very fancy corporate clients, and also, debits and credits of high-end tax returns. But I didn't really learn anything about, all right, when I start making money, what do I actually do with it?
And
so,
I mean, isn't that just like bizarre? You would think that you went and you learned at college all about money, but you learned accounting practices, which is very different than the skill of managing money.
Absolutely. And you would think someone majoring in a finance-related field would absolutely get that education, but I didn't. So if I didn't get it, what about all the other people that didn't major in finance? They definitely didn't get it. So all through my 20s, I really struggled with money. I mean, I was totally broke.
I want to put this out there, Agatha. Sometimes I dabble in conspiracy theories a little bit, so I want to just throw this one out there. Do you think there's a reason why people aren't taught how to manage their money? Maybe a conscious underlying motive that keeps them ignorant?
I do. I think it's a great way to keep people disempowered, and it's a way to kind of keep control over the masses. I mean, not to sound like a conspiracy theorist.
Oh,
but
yeah. I'll stay in the boat. You stay on the shore, but
okay.
But we're in agreement that there is possibly something going on there. This is an important subject, no doubt. This money is one of the most single determining factors of how somebody will live their life. And this is not being as a foundational core skill, this is not being taught. And so that only leads me to one conclusion. There's a reason why it's not being taught. It's not that they forgot. It's that it's purposely being left out, and that's why we're here to address it today. So let's talk about some of the lessons you learned around managing money that you really want to instill in these young people that maybe aren't getting it through traditional education.
I would say the first thing is always be saving money and paying yourself first. I mean, I was raised in a home where when my parents got paid, the first priority was always get the bills paid. It's like they just worked and lived in the hopes of being able to pay their bills. And that's really all it ever was for them, and still is. They just make enough money to pay their bills. So I also, in my 20s, did that. I lived to pay my bills. I lived to pay off my credit card debt, and I never was able to make a dent in it. It wasn't until I said, screw this, I'm not making Chase Bank a priority in my life anymore. I'm going to actually save money and put it away for myself before I pay anyone else. And that's when everything started to change for me.
Uh-oh.
So
the banks don't like the sound of this. We're not making them priority anymore?
No way. No way. Because then they stay a priority for the rest of your life. It is the way broke people think. Sorry, but it is.
Why, when you start paying yourself first, does things change?
Well, I think it's a big self-worth issue.
Okay, so first it's the psychological benefit of simply seeing this money accrue.
Yes.
And making yourself a priority.
Absolutely. And when you start seeing money build up in your savings account, especially for the first time in your life, you start to feel more comfortable. you start to feel more powerful. You're more at ease because you have now some security. And when that starts to happen, you just exude so much more power and confidence out into the world, and people feel that. They pick up on it. I mean, this is how I was able to pay off $30,000 of credit card debt in 18 months and triple my income in 3 months, because it changed my whole kind of psyche and being and chemistry. It was really amazing.
So, and this is very interesting. So you're saying that the psychological benefits of prioritizing yourself first and seeing this money accrue beget more financial reward in many respects, just from the shift of I am the priority and I am going to accrue savings first as a priority.
Absolutely. And I know it may sound counterintuitive, because I always have people saying to me, well, I have $40,000 of credit card debt. How could you tell me to save money? And I always say to them, well, how are you doing paying off that credit card debt? How long have you had that credit card debt? You have to kind of stop the cycle.
Yeah.
It is a huge psychological shift, but once it happens, everything changes.
Okay, so now the first thought that would occur to somebody is like, okay, I like that. I like the sound of that. But the bills are still going to be there. I mean, if I'm barely squeaking by now and I start suddenly prioritizing myself, they're going to still come after me. I'm going to fall behind on my payments. How do you address that additional stress that may immediately come from paying yourself first, and now suddenly you have some creditors after you?
Now, I'm not advocating to stop paying your credit card bills altogether, but I am saying, rather than putting all of your extra money that you may make towards credit cards, perhaps just paying the minimums for a period of time and stashing away money for yourself, even if it's just $10.
Okay, so it's building that habit of, even if you have a little bit of extra money, don't put that into more credit card debt or luxury spending or anything. Put that into your savings.
Absolutely. And if you can get up to saving 10 to 20% of your after-tax income for yourself, that's great. That's a really great goal. But if you're not there yet because things are tighter, just start with $1. I don't care.
It's just a little bit of that habit to just get it going.
Yes, and you can increase it as time goes on and things improve. Now,
is another byproduct of the savings that you now have money to invest, and that can lead to greater returns? Is there because that's like a very real kind of financial component. You have the psychological benefits, but now if you actually have a savings, you have the ability to invest. Investment means return. Now you may be able to create some kind of income stream from your investments. Am I going way ahead of the game here, or is that a logical conclusion to this?
No, I would absolutely agree with you. It creates freedom for you. So freedom of choice. When I started saving money for myself, I then shifted from taking any client that came my way to then being able to select the clients that I really liked and wanted to work with. And then finally shifting my business kind of completely into now being online and having a blog and having an online class. I could have never done those things if I was strapped financially. And then also the third component, which you mentioned, is taking it and actually investing it so your money can actually work for you rather than you kind of killing yourself, busting your ass all the time for your money.
And that was the biggest thing for me, is once I linked the time freedom to wise investing, not just of the money, but also of your time. When you can start choosing where you invest your time and where you invest it more wisely, not because you have to, but because you want to, your energy levels are higher and you make better decisions that lead to better results, and it just accumulates over time. So everything that you're saying has been validated in my life as well. And the three main points I want to touch on again with you and just reiterate is the psychological benefits from prioritizing yourself first and saving, the freedom benefits from now having the power of choice versus obligation, and the investment opportunities that can now flow from that in choosing where to invest your time and where to invest your money. Are we good so far?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right, what are some other key ideas that you want to get across, and what you'd like to see people take action on when they leave today?
I would like to see people stick to a budget, I know that that may sound really boring snoring, but the reality is even a millionaire can go broke if they spend all their money like crazy. So it doesn't mean that you need to be a psychotic micromanager of your money all the time, but I think it's really important to set aside, goals and decide where you want to go with your life and be setting aside money for those and also for your expenses. So then this way you're never really surprised. If your car breaks down, it's no big deal because you have cash in the bank.
And when you say budgets, I mean, you're talking about you have a savings, the money that you set aside for savings, your target initially is 10 to 20%, you said?
Yes.
And then a spending budget, this is for my housing, this is for my food, it doesn't have to be this precise number, but you have a general idea on where those expenses are going to end up every month.
Yes, and then also, once you get to a point, have also an investing account. So whatever you want to invest in, and this could be anything from, hey, I want to buy an apartment building one day to, oh, I need to save money for my 401k every year.
And,
so
and you should know, you should have an idea of what that might cost you. Like, once I get to this number, I'm going to invest in the 401k in an apartment building or whatever.
Exactly. Okay. I know that the general rule is once you have 6 months of expenses in the bank, then you can then focus on investing and so forth. I would say, in times of tighter economy, it might be more prudent to maybe have 9 months. That really depends on you and what your risk tolerance is.
And this brings up an interesting point, which is the lower you can get your expenses, the faster you can move into investment mode.
Absolutely. So I think a big mistake people make is they adjust their lifestyle too quickly.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
They start making more money and right away they're going to move into a new house, buy a fancy new car. No.
They're always stretching themselves. And I'll tell you what, and I don't know if you touch on this in your class or anything, but when you make a commitment to a fixed expense obligation long term, you've just set yourself back from having the freedom and the psychological benefits and everything we talked about big time. The decisions that you might make to get that car loan or the house loan or whatever, that's stretching you now, you've just set yourself up to stretch for a long time, and that knocks you off balance.
Absolutely. And what do you want to work so hard for? Chase Bank or your landlord or your mortgage company? Or would you rather have just more freedom in your life so you can actually enjoy yourself a lot more?
It's a really hard decision. I mean, you got Chase Bank. I mean, they are such nice, wonderful people, these bankers. But then on the other hand, you have yourself, and it's a close one. But I would go with the second.
Absolutely.
What would you say? I know you're probably not out giving investment advice or anything, but I think it's helpful for people to see maybe what's working for you. Because there's this critical point when you've actually saved some money, you've actually created a little bit of freedom, you now have the power to choose. It's critically important that the choices you make right as you're about to crawl out of the hole of debt and obligation, those choices that you make there, it's like they say, your first million's the hardest, but then after that, it's going to be much easier because you have that capital to work with and everything. It could be even true your first 100,000, your first 10,000 is going to be much harder than your next 10,000 because you now have more and more freedom and choices to work with. What has worked for you, and what would you suggest for somebody who's in that first step of prioritizing themselves, and then in that second step of they now have some more choices? It's critically important they make the right ones.
Risk tolerance and time. So if you're 25, you may decide that you can invest in some more risky things because you have more time than someone who's 75. So that's the first thing. How much time do you have to get to whatever this goal is, whether you're saving for retirement or you want to buy a big apartment building one day? And the second thing is, how much risk are you willing to bear? And people do often lie to themselves about how much risk they're actually willing to bear. They say, oh, yeah, I can totally handle that. If I open my stock portfolio and it's down 60%, I can totally roll with that. But then when it actually happens, they are freaking out. So I would say make sure it's money that, you can, whatever your risk tolerance may be, obviously the longer you hold that investment, the lower the risk will be, because it's kind of spread out over a longer period.
You know, to go along with what you're saying, I've heard it's about how you use you have investment buckets. One is your high risk bucket, one is your medium risk, and one is your low risk. And depending on the time component you're talking about, if you're younger, you could have a bigger high risk bucket, higher risk, higher reward bucket. If you're older, you have a bigger lower risk, lower reward bucket.
Yes, you can absolutely do that. And even if you're younger, I mean, I know I have several kind of accounts and buckets that I save for, and some are lower risk and some are higher risk. But in the higher risk bucket, I really only put money that I can afford to lose. That if I lost it, yeah, I might be sad and crying, if on my floor for a day, but it wouldn't make or break me.
Long as it's only a day, because that, after that, it gets to be. You've got in the high risk buckets. Now this, you could be looking at starting a business or whatever. One of the ways that you can take high risk and high reward and take more calculated risks is investing in something you know and control. So researching the heck out of it. Is there anything that you have become a specialist at, or that this rings true for you in your life? An area that could normally be considered high risk, but because you've researched the heck out of it, maybe you've got expert advice, you're really taking much more calculated risks.
I would say all the business risks I take are very calculated. I don't ever just kind of, sit in my office and go, oh, hey, that sounds cool. I'm going to go ahead and put a bunch of money into a business like that, or I'm going to take my business in a direction like that, without doing some market research first. So,
because I think it's important, because when people think high risk, it's like, okay, money I can afford to lose. It's like red or black, Vegas, baby. But but this is when you go into a high risk bucket, you don't give it to somebody where you don't control it, you don't know, you don't see. You want to be very clear, because then you can learn from it and get better at it.
Yes, I think it's really important to understand it. I mean, you don't have to understand it, inside out completely the first time around, but it's really important to have a good grasp of it. And also, again, do market research. For instance, if you're going to be opening up a new leg of business or a new business altogether, is this something people actually want? Are people going to buy what you're selling? Because if they're not, I don't really care, if you think it's the best idea since sliced bread, it's not going to work.
Right. All right, well, some really great stuff here. I know you've got a whole 6-week course on it, and we could be here for 6 weeks, although I think they would rather go to the 6-week Money Mojo with Agatha. Where can they go to learn more about this course and learn more about you, my dear?
Well, my website is agatha-k.com, and if they click on my products page, they can get information on 6-week Money Mojo there. And it's just an easy online class that I put together because I didn't really see any ways for people to learn about money out there that didn't bore them to death. So that's what I wanted to do. And I when the economy went down a few years ago, I had a lot of individuals coming to me and saying, hi, can you teach me everything you know about money? And I would come back and say, well, yes, but that's going to cost you thousands of dollars. It wasn't affordable. So I decided to kind of scale it and put it all in an online class. So then this way it could actually be affordable for people rather than breaking their bank. I mean, who wants to pay $10,000 to learn about, money when they're having money problems? It just doesn't really make any sense. Right.
It doesn't. And also money can't, the personal finance side can be boring. So having some mojo in it too is like a nice little bonus.
Absolutely. And I call myself the fun money nerd. I'm a big geek and I like to just have fun with everything I do, money included.
We can see that. We can see that you're a fun money nerd. We could see that from the very first minute of having you on the show.
Well, thanks.
All right, Agatha. Well, I encourage everybody to go and check out your website, agatha-k.com. Guys, if you want to learn more about money, I mean, this is a wonderful person to work with and fun. It's the 6-week Money Mojo course online class for personal finance that won't bore you to death. Hopefully, you've been able to get a glimpse of that and get some good insights that'll help you to be a better money manager. Because remember, there is, and this is me talking, there is a lot of ignorance out there, and it's almost purposeful ignorance. So this is a way to enlighten yourself and start acting in ways that you can be more empowered. Some of the benefits that we talked about is the psychological and self-worth benefits, the freedom benefits, and being an investor that can get better returns on your money and your time. Agatha, I thank you for being on today's show and giving us better returns on our time in learning about personal finance.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Agatha. Take care. Well, that concludes this week's episode of The Full Potential Show, your number one non-boring source for personal development. I'm James Rick, and if you want to get more positive programming for your brain absolutely free on a weekly basis, just visit fullpotential.com.
If you like The Full Potential Show, you're going to love the Full Potential Club. What would you like most as a Full Potential Club member? Be 2 to 3 times more productive? Do what you're passionate about? Have more energy? Reduce your work hours? Travel the world? Enjoy an amazing lifestyle on a frugal budget? What if you could do them all? James Rick has been there and done it in ways that few people have. For anyone serious about taking their life or business to the next level, you know you've got to do more than just watch. You've got to do. Join James Rick and other like-minded people for an incredible $10 a month at fullpotential.com/club. Be educated. Be empowered. Be the best version of you. fullpotential.com/club. Try it free for 30 days.